Hello, fellow preppers. 'Tis I, the rumpled one. Pulling the trigger. Now, I know you don't pull the trigger. You squeeze the trigger. But common terminology is pulling the trigger, and that's why I titled the video Pulling the Trigger. Okay, that being said, when do you pull the trigger? Because as preppers, you've seen me. I've got the bullets, lots of bullets. When will I actually pull the trigger to use it against another human? You have to have this plan already prepared. Because when the time comes, there's no time to think. There's only time to act. Not react, but act. Because if you react, you're too slow. You have to act. Take action. So when do you pull the trigger? If you're at home at night, or actually even during the day, and somebody enters your house uninvited, and they're a stranger, well, their history. There's no doubt about it. Now, that being said, you have to realize that when you pull the trigger, it's a last resort. In other words, you can't avoid the conflict. You can't escape from the conflict. You can't evade the conflict. Those choices are cut off. So if you're cornered, you're in a corner, you can't get out, you pull that trigger. You understand? But even in your own house, if you pull the trigger, the law, the government might say, well, you could have jumped out the window, or you could have left out the back way. Why didn't you? You have to have an answer. You have to be consistent. Because they might ask you, well, where was the gun when you heard the noise? Did you pick up the gun? Did you have it on your person? You've got to know the answer to these things ahead of time. I'm not saying to lie, but I'm saying you have to be prepared to answer ahead of time. So you take all this as educational purposes only, not as legal advice. That's a little disclaimer. If you're surrounded, say you're out in the woods or something, and all of a sudden you notice you're surrounded by some people you don't know, and your gut instincts tell you that these people might mean you harm. You're surrounded. But you have to be careful. Are they brandishing weapons? So in this case, when you're surrounded, you just might want to pull the trigger. So, if you're in a corner or if you're surrounded, you can't avoid, you can't evade, you can't escape, you've got reason to pull the trigger. Now, even if somebody comes up to you with a fist, they want to start fighting, can you pull that trigger? They say, well, if you're in a corner, there's no way to go. He was bigger than me. He was whatever. Now, I said pull the trigger, of course. Once again, it's squeeze the trigger. But you have to think about this and prepare this ahead of time. So, once again, prepare. Because if you fail to prepare today, you might not be able to prepare tomorrow. And I guess Cat 1 wanted to get in the video again. Cat 1, you've become quite the movie star. Look at this.